Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning Board to order. It is Thursday, March 11th, 2021 at just after 7 p.m. This is a remote meeting, and in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, March 11th, 2021 public meeting of the Planning Board shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. However, to view this meeting in progress, please go to facebook.com/LakeCAM/. You do not need a Facebook account to view the meeting. This meeting will be recorded and available to be viewed at a later date at www.lakecam.tv/. At this time, I'd like to call attendance. I have present, Barbara Mankowski is present. I have Peter Conroy present. I have Michelle McEachran, a planning board member present, and Jack Lynch, planning board member present, and myself, Mark Knox, chairman present. Kathy Murray, the clerk of the planning board, is present. And so at this time, I'd like to delve into the first agenda item, which is an update on the floodplain bylaw. I haven't seen anything, so does anybody have anything to add to this? I know voted to send this to council and Nate Darling, and they were going to send some information regarding template bylaws from other towns that had already been completed. Would somebody like to step in on that?
I'd like to confirm with Kathy that that information was sent forward.
I know Nate has it. I think he's been working on it, but I can't speak for him to where he's at and that, so.
Okay, so my understanding of Nate's actions were he was going to go through the existing floodplain bylaw to make sure that there were no contradictions or overlaps or issues with the new bylaw that we're adopting, creating a problem with the existing bylaw, so that they both could, because it's not an adopt and replace, it's an adopt in addition to bylaw.
Right. We did speak, I'm not sure if it was today, and just as we were talking about it, he was kind of being pulled away to something else, so I can't exactly say what he had said, but I can speak to him tomorrow about that.
So has this made it to the Board of Selectmen for as an agenda item for the town meeting that's coming up?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I'm just letting everybody know it's going to be a major issue if this isn't approved at town meeting. I don't care what else we have going on. It's the most important thing we have going. The floodplain. I'll call Nate in the morning.
What about Amy Questle? Did it go to town council?
She's saying it didn't.
Amy and Nate, Amy was going to send Nate templates of other ones that have been completed.
Okay.
And again, he was going to cross-reference those with our existing bylaw.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I believe he said he was working on.
Okay, I'm gonna email tomorrow, Mark, if you're okay with this. We got to jump on, baby. I think we need to get Amy and Nate and the Board of Selectmen. So I'll copy Tracy. My concern is that we're past that window where we need to get on the warrant.
I believe that they are aware.
They have to be aware of it, but yeah.
Let's do something now.
Okay, I will send an email to Amy and Nate and you and the Board of Selectmen or Tracy and just make sure.
Is that what Mark is talking about, or was he referring to something else when he said, let's do something now?
I think he wants something right now, not tomorrow, right now.
I'll send something right now. We have a fairly light agenda tonight. I don't want to, not that I want to drag the night out, but it'll take just a minute or two just to draft a quick email.
Good.
So I'm gonna just do an email that says, Board of Selectmen. I'm just getting a text to, got a text from Nate. Didn't get Amy's stuff, so he just did it. It's pretty much done, and the Board of Selectmen knows it's coming.
Okay.
So I'm gonna hold on the email. That said, I trust that Nate's way ahead of us in the loop. If you feel you want to send something tomorrow, then Barbara, I'm not gonna create redundancy.
I don't want to create more work, Mark. I only do it.
But,
if it's benefit.
I know Nate's working on it. He's working hard, and he's watching right now to know that. So I'm not gonna add more emails to the bureaucracy.
Yep.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
So I think that's a fair update on that, because I know that the intent was, I believe, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, we were gonna reverse engineer the timing to make sure that they could do what they need to do currently. The selectmen were made aware that it needed to be on the warrant, and that we would still get the public hearing posted between now and the town meeting to get it on. It would be on the warrant, and we would have a hearing between now and then.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well.
And we have time for that right now, Kathy?
When is
Yeah, because
town
it's not until
meeting?
May is
In
the town
May?
meeting.
Yeah, so
And
there's plenty of time
it
for
was
us.
about 3 weeks or so to have to post it properly, Kathy.
Right, it takes about a week. It
so
takes 8
hopefully-
days and then
hopefully-
2 weeks to run.
Hopefully early in April, we can have that public hearing. So by the end of this month, we probably want to know and be able to post that.
Yeah, that shouldn't be an
So,
issue.
so that said, would everybody agree, maybe Kathy, keep that as an action item on the agenda for our regular planning board meeting for 2 weeks
Yep.
from now?
Yeah,
Okay. Barbara, you agree?
Yep.
So Peter, you nodded. Michelle, you agree with that?
Yep. sounds
Okay,
good.
so that's a consensus to say, not necessarily a vote, but we'll keep that as an action item. And next item is the site plan review bylaw, which I believe that was, I saw it in my email circulated. Nate approved, and it was gonna go to Amy Questle for approval.
Yep.
And I have not seen anything. I don't know if you saw anything, Kathy?
Not yet, no.
Okay,
I can check in it with her again.
and so we made the amendments to the site plan review bylaw. If that comes back approved from town council, then we can post a public hearing. Kathy, could you also send an email, or should we send an email to the Board of Selectmen to clearly state that we want the site plan review bylaw to be included on the warrant for the town meeting?
Yeah, I can do that tomorrow.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak to that?
I'm just hoping it's not too late, because I thought that was the 8th that the warrant items were due.
I think it was in discussion, so hopefully it's
Okay.
still achievable. In worst case, we'll have to do it for the fall town meeting, but hopefully, I know Selectman LaCamera is being pretty aggressive with getting things closed out as quick as possible. So I know that they don't have the budget done for the town meeting, so hopefully that they could add a warrant item now.
Okay.
And we just hold a public meeting, no different than the floodplain bylaw. So yeah, Kathy, if you could send an email, just as a placeholder for the Board of
Right.
Selectmen to hold something for floodplain bylaw on the warrant review. Being that there's no other discussion on that, master plan implementation, we received a letter, I have it somewhere in my packet, from James Rogers, co-chair of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. Has everybody seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would anybody like to talk about that?
Well, I mean, we are addressing as best we're able to, chunk by chunk. And I think, Michelle, you're on the master plan implementation committee, right?
So I know, I was nominated by, planning board as an alternate. I don't know if the Board of Selectmen, appointed me as an alternate yet, but I did get an invite to their meeting next week. And I told them
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
attend.
And Jack,
I'll be there. Yes, I'm there.
okay. So I mean, the two things that come to mind are that, you know, that I know that were on the plan all those years ago, was the planner. We got that done. We got that request made, right? We're working on that. There's something else we just accomplished.
Well, there was the sign, bylaw that we were gonna try to get on the warrant, but then I think we decided to let that go for now. But that is an upcoming item on the master plan for planning board to attack.
I just, as an interesting side point, I want to mention to you that I was watching the Smithsonian Channel last night, and they had a program about Vermont. And in Vermont, I think it was Rockefeller donated a ton of money to this one community, and they said no signs on any highways around that community. And it was passed in the 1830s, I believe it was 1830,
Wow.
40. Is that right? Yeah, it was really, really long time ago. And since that time, they haven't had any signs in that region. So, you know, if we don't want big flashing signs, I think that's completely reasonable. If people have been talking about this for basic signage for 200 years, right?
Mm.
And what about the fees? I think fees are on that list as well. I don't have master plan. Yeah, I think they should get regular updates. What's the best format for doing it? Is it passing it from Jack and Michelle over to implementation, Mark? Or is it a memo that leaves from Kathy?
So the second paragraph of the letter is, as a result of the conversations, I was tasked with contacting the chairs of various boards and committees that contribute to the contributed to and participated in the planning and development of the master plan, to ask the boards and committees possibly could add an agenda item to one of their next meetings to discuss master plan and what, if any, actions they could have taken or plan to take to review and implement the various goals and strategies assigned their group, I'm going to assume that I should say. Such feedback to us would be helpful to us to follow through with the plan, but would also be helpful and informational to the Lakeville community. So I think, you know, and you've been very vocal about this, Barbara, that it's to get across the point that things are happening. So maybe we put together a letter stating the action items that we've completed, and maybe also include the next couple of action items throughout the master plan that we intend to address.
Do you want me to prepare that and send it for draft for your review? And then
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Because Michelle's got enough on her plate. Pete's so busy.
You want me to present that at the meeting on the 17th?
I think once we have, I'd like to have a draft that would be approved by us, and then yes, I would, Jack. I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, you do that and we do that, and I'll present it on the 17th.
Okay, that's next week. Okay.
However you guys, next week.
I should be able to get that out by the weekend at the latest.
Okay. If that's what you want, Mark, good.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I think Barbara could put together a letter showing what action items have been completed based on the master plan agenda. And even if we discuss it at our next regular meeting or earlier, what would we put in there for the next items to try and achieve? Excuse me.
I'm not biting off any more than we can chew right now. I'm not committing to anything, Mark.
Well, I mean, even if it's, you parse expectations with the way it's worded, but to say our next goals, we would hope to
Okay,
work towards X, Y, and Z within a reasonable time frame.
okay.
I think the next goal years are 2022. I think it went from 2020 to 2022, if I remember correctly, but I don't have the spreadsheet right now in front of me.
Well, does anybody else want to be copied on the draft email for master plan? I mean, Michelle and Jack are on that committee, so.
Sure.
I will, once I get it, I'll send it on to Rita and tell her I want to have that introduced into the agenda for the 17th meeting.
Okay. Sounds good. I think the fee structure, which we're going to talk about in a minute, is part of that as well, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is. I'm going to be forced to get up and go look.
No, call. I have it here.
Where did we lose Barbara to? She looked for.
She just went off to get something.
I was going to look for the master plan thing, but it's in a big stack and we need to keep the meeting moving, so.
Well, the other portion of the master plan was the fee schedule.
Yep, which is we have tonight, is 4B.
Yep. So before we move on to the fee schedule, I'd be satisfied with the letter you put forward and be cautiously optimistic with what we intended to achieve in the next couple of years. I trust your judgment, and I know you can more than satisfactorily include the achievements that we're at now.
Okay.
So yeah, put together a draft. That would be great.
Yep.
So the planning board fee review draft stated February 25th, 2021, which was the last meeting we discussed it. We had some proposed fees based on different disciplines that the planning board would oversee. One in particular was highlighted in yellow, which was the Water Development District Special Permit, which was some hazardous material storage within that area. We had a tiered by hazard type, for example. There would be one fee for maybe a landscape company that stored salt for salting parking lots. And then that would be versing a much higher fee for trash or maybe hazardous material storage in some sort of a transfer or recycling center. So are there specific items or just that one that we wanted to address tonight? Or we?
Well, I think we were hoping that, perhaps Nate Darling would have a chance to review this and tell us if he thought these fees were reasonable or too low or too high. I mean, maybe it's better that he view it in context of the other communities based on the spreadsheet that we drafted. And I think for the hazard type, there must be hazard codes as defined by the Mass DEP. There must be different tiers of risk. So perhaps we can incorporate that into our fee structure. Because there's a lot of things that you and I wouldn't think of as being hazardous that actually are really, really, really hazardous. And it just has to be someone who understands the science of it more than I think we do. But I think we need to get some feedback, Mark, on this before we vote to approve it. Are you muted?
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
I was facing away probably. Hazardous material storage is a use group. It's classified under the Board of Building and Regulations.
Yep.
So I can actually, I'll pull that up on my other computer just to have a brief discussion about that. That might be helpful in understanding the difference between salt storage and, say, a company that would store drums of urethane or
Where are you looking, Mark? Is that our bylaw? Or is that state stuff?
state stuff.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna open up the document in case we want to edit it. Can you tell me what you see on the state site? Here's another suggestion, Mark. What about if we send this over to conservation? We have a conservation agent, right? Bob could take a look. And maybe he has an opinion on that as well.
That wouldn't hurt. But I think we want to give him some parameters as far as our concerns,
Yep.
not just send him to do research that he's not familiar with.
Do we even know like an idea of what this fee would be? Like, are we talking hundreds or are we like thousands? Because I don't even know. Where do you even start with this one? I'm just curious.
Like I said, with the storage of salt for a landscaper to salt parking lots, I think that's a lower risk than, say, a company that wants to stockpile home heating oil in 10,000 gallon tanks above ground to fill their oil trucks to go and deliver it. If they got tractor trailers of it delivered to their site and loaded into these tanks. Again, it's based on the high hazard or moderate hazard or low hazard storage of material.
Is there a benefit to looking at what comparable towns do?
We did that. This is, you know, if we unzip the file that we had, that was one of the things that Michelle and I, when we worked on this project originally, but this is under a different category. It's Water Development District Special Permit. So,
Yeah, I think we were trying to put a figure to this only because we had special permit development overlay district with a fee. And then this was the only other special permit that planning board would be granting. So we wanted to also have a fee for this.
Okay.
But I'm very curious to know when something or if something like this has come up. Because I don't think it was this wasn't a new, I believe that it was referring to anything that was existing as opposed to something coming in with this sort of hazard type. I think it was existing.
well, the
Right.
interesting thing is that, you know, we are part of a very sophisticated watershed development, right? Watershed, not development, system. And we provide water to surrounding communities, and we really have to be mindful of the fact that, you know, what's happening here in Lakeville is affecting Taunton and New Bedford and all these areas. So if we had someone come to us that wanted to do, for example, what's going to go over there at Silver City Galleria, they're going to have a warehouse plus, you know, potentially a trash transfer station by rail. I mean, we don't want that business in town to begin with at all. And if it is going to affect our water systems and it's going to be in some part that affects it, I'm all for imposing very large fees on something like that, just considering the communities that rely on us for clean water. But you know, I'm not afraid of charging fees to developers to begin with, so. I don't know how many of these other towns are going to have a water development overlay district to begin with. Let's see what we got there. Sudbury does, and so does Mansfield. Okay, so we have Town of Sudbury. And we have Mansfield.
Michelle,
Yes.
type in search 780 CMR 307.0.
Okay. 7.0. For some reason, it came up as 780 CMR, just 3.00.
307.0.
Okay, so I think I just have to scroll down here. Three zero seven point one.
You're taking us to mass state law, Mark, right?
It's the Board of Building Regulations and Standards.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the use group H1, H2, H3, and H4, which are different levels of hazardous material storage. Go from aerosols, compressed gas, liquids having a flash point of above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, corrosive materials, cryogenic liquids. I mean, everything is in there, and it's probably something we could just reference the section if we wanted to, based on the hazard level, create a permit classification.
But it looks like their classifications are varied by the type of toxicity that it is.
Yep, which would seem like a great way to tier your permitting or
Okay.
the level of danger.
Yep.
You know, if there was a permit involved and you referenced it based on the storage of use group H1, H2, H3, and H4, we wanted to get that complex in the cost of the permit if somebody was going to store something hazardous, which salt is not. Well, salt could be considered corrosive, but I don't know if it's corrosive to the level that falls under the high hazard standards. So we'd have to look into the definitions of that. And also I need to look back at that water development district permit, to check the definition of that.
Okay. I'm gonna bookmark this page.
Hmm.
So as far as the planning board fee, is there anything else that I felt like we got a lot of the stuff done and we were satisfied with a lot of the decisions that we made on that. That was the only real loose end.
Yep, we were
Yep.
supposed to have this feedback from Nate, I think. He probably hasn't, I don't even know, Kathy, was this ever sent to Nate or we know?
Mark, I have one question. When you go to retainer fees, $15 a linear foot. In the past, I thought we avoided writing bond, or if we have bond in there, they have to be able to, because you can't make somebody take out a bond. If they have cash, they have to be able to just pay in cash. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's worth changing or it's very minor, but.
No, that's important, Pete. So how would you like to see it worded?
Via bond or I forget what they call it when they just give us cash and it goes into a separate account. Kathy would know.
Surety,
What is it?
surety.
Cash surety. Yeah.
Okay, so I just changed it. I just added or surety at the end of that phase. Is that gonna work?
Yeah, the advantage to the developer is if he knows he's going to follow through. A bond If you required somebody to post, say, a $60,000 bond, it would cost them, say, $3,000 to $5,000 for a 2-year period for that bond. And then when it expires, it cost him $3,000 to $5,000.
Mhm.
If he says, I have the money and when I'm ready to develop, I'll give you the 60 and I get it back once I achieve X or Y, and he gets the full amount back. It doesn't cost him a dime, so long as he fulfills his promise.
Should we reword cash surety or bond rather than bond and
Well,
cash surety?
Barbara added or surety so that they have the choice. So they, some guys would rather post a bond and some would rather post a surety. So that either way, they have the option with having
Okay.
the or.
They
Do we
don't
have a
walk away from
preference?
bonds very easily either if they have good credit. Bonds are
Correct.
hard to get if they have bad credit, so it's,
Right, it sort of depends on the amount. If they needed to
Right.
post an amount that's not attainable readily, then they post a bond.
Okay.
Great point, Pete. Thank you.
So
I'm gonna make this change, Mark, and send it out to Kathy.
with the intent to be circulated to the building commissioner for
Yes.
any input.
Yes, I think that would be good.
And I would say leave the highlighted section next to the water development district. Highlighted. Because I think that's our major question, but input at any line would be great as well. But that's the only one that's sort of incomplete.
Mark, in some of these lists, in the 780 CMR, do we want to some of these lists are some pretty nasty stuff. Is it listed elsewhere in the town of things that they just can't bring into town and store? Not really, you know what I mean? We're just not interested in those things ever coming here.
Well, I think that would be the advantage of making a permit that's not worth purchasing.
Well,
But
if
I
a
don't-
company has money, a permit fee, no matter what you set, is not going to phase them as you know.
Yeah,
But
depending on, if that's all they do is store millions of gallons of said hazardous material.
Right.
If you made a $10,000 fee, it's probably cheap in the big picture, but I don't know, that's why we're having the discussion though, is to decide how to maybe not have that come to town. So,
Right.
yeah,
Like if you, not to keep on this, but if you go to page 58 of that, if we're all on the same one, 780 CMR, if you go to 58, the high hazard group, those things really have no business coming here, you know. Cryogenic fluids, just storing them and not using them. Oxidizers, consumer fireworks.
well, and so then maybe you say with the high hazard group, we don't offer a permit.
Correct. I mean, there are places in town that store and they're in the business of, you know, hazardous chemicals. So I wouldn't want to put in anything in that are already being used in town safely and they're being sold, and so we just have to be careful about what we would classify. You know, I know of a few businesses, but
I agree.
we'll keep working on it.
So Barbara, do you want to put a footnote to that when that gets circulated regarding maybe the high hazard use group? To check to see if we could make obtaining a permit not an option, or would that conflict with any existing businesses?
So I think that's a different, this is a fee thing on new stuff, but that's a bylaw question.
Yeah, but it would be pre-existing, and well, do you have to reapply at some point? Everybody, a lot of times it's annual to go get your new permit or a dumpster or whatever. So is that something that we, even if they're existing, we still make a permit fee?
Okay. Okay. Did you see the other email that just came across? The floodplain? I think we'll have to tackle, I don't know. I haven't read it yet, Mark.
It must have been sent while we were talking about it.
Yep.
No, I haven't. Also, I see it there, but I haven't read
All right. Well, I'm just, because I'm just concerned about, getting it onto the town warrant. This is a hustle. We got to get this done. So I'm wondering if we should just pass this over to Kathy and. have her-
Let's you and I review it.
Okay.
That draft, I'll want to just communicate with Nate because I don't see any text from him. It's his amendments to the existing floodplain bylaw with the FEMA updates. Review it,
Okay.
and then we'll make a decision to circulate it, to get it on the next agenda for a discussion and keep the ball rolling.
All right. But here's the thing, Mark. So our next regular meeting is going to be the 25th.
Yep.
Where do we stand for we have to get this onto the town meeting in May, so. Eek. Sweating bullets over here.
What if,
Michelle?
instead of waiting to the next meeting, if you find that it's suitable, that you circulate it to all of us and we just reply individually to Mark, and then it can be passed forward to Kathy to then.
Yeah, I think with the reverse engineering method of the timeline, I think, can the board agree that the approval of language to amend the floodplain bylaw is imperative? Did the board agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed, yep.
And based on that, with the amendments from the building commissioner, who is the floodplain administrator, that we can trust that with all accuracy, anything that he drafts, we would just send to town council for approval to keep the ball rolling.
I agree to that as well.
Yes.
So barring any amendments from the chairman, would the board agree that the chairman could take action to keep the floodplain bylaw moving forward towards making it onto the warrant and hosting a public hearing if action is needed?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm gonna call that a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion for the chairman to take action to keep the zoning floodplain bylaw moving forward, to make it on the town meeting agenda. Motion and a second, all in favor? Barbara,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jack,
Hey,
Michelle,
Aye.
and myself. Motion carries unanimously. So much like when I am voted to sign a document on behalf of the board, I will take action on this and I will give updates related to that as well. I will CC Barbara in all my action to make sure that the board is kept abreast of any action. Okay,
Good. All right, thank you.
you're welcome. Moving along. Would you say that's conclusion of item 4, master plan fees and response to the letter? We jumped around there. Next item agenda is minutes of meeting.
I'd like to just interject here, Mark. I sent an email to Kathy and Nate and yourself, just to reiterate the fact that we've had an ongoing issue long before Kathy came along, and where we were just unable to keep up with the meeting minutes, for whatever reason. And this has gone, we've had other, people providing services to the board. It's just one of those things that lingers. I am extremely frustrated with the delay in meeting minutes as being provided. I would like to see going forward a meeting minutes from the most recent meeting. And then if we have to go back to doing one from a prior date, but for example, today we're going to see meeting minutes from a year ago, 2020, and one from November. And there's pages and pages and pages here. And then we're going to see another one from December. I mean, this is 3 months ago, I think. And then January, which is probably the most recent one, that was the 43D meeting. It is very, very difficult to remember events that happened a year ago. And I'm very uncomfortable voting for things that are this old. So, if we have to get a temp in here to catch us up or to keep us caught up, I'm totally fine with that. We'll talk to the Board of Selectmen, to get the resources in place, but we cannot have meeting minutes that are this aged. It makes me uncomfortable because I don't have that good of a memory. I wish I did.
I'm a newcomer, so when I saw this, I'm saying, why are we reviewing meeting minutes that are this old? I mean, maybe that's the way you guys do it, but I'm saying, wow, holy mackerel. How can you remember what you agreed to that time that long ago?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you.
I mean, in business, and I think that's where Jack's coming from. It just doesn't happen this way. Normally you would go to a meeting and it'd be the prior meeting and you would approve it and everybody would remember what just happened. But it's going to reach a point when I'm going to abstain. I'm just not going to vote on stuff that's really, really old because I don't remember everything that happened without watching the meeting minutes. So
yeah,
I just need to say,
my experience, you go to a meeting, the admin would type up the minutes and you get them the next day within 2 days rather than 3 or 4 months.
in this case,
And that's not saying,
it's
I'm new.
on you, Kathy. You do a great job. It's no reflection on you. This issue has been
It's townwide.
participation on the board. So
I
It's
don't,
townwide.
I don't agree because the minutes that are outstanding, the really old ones, are from COVID, directly related. I was on reduced hours. Other than that, you were getting minutes up to date. I checked it out. In December, you were voting on the November minutes. So there wasn't a problem until I was out.
So as an example for today, we should have been seeing the meeting minutes from the 4th.
Well, I was told by the clerk to get the oldest ones done. So first.
And that's the pressure that you're under. It's not your decision. You shouldn't have to fight with the clerk and us. And it's not a reflection on you, but I want the town to understand that if the town needs more resources on this, then let's get them. I mean, I remember when Lorraine was sitting in for us and I gave her Dragon software at one point. We just need to get this process moving so that what we're looking at is very fresh.
Can't be that expensive to get an admin to do some of this.
And there's enough going on. We need a temp to come in and do it. bring a temp in and she can proof it or whatever, but you know what I mean? They're hours long. I mean, she can't be doing all this by herself. It's too long.
I know.
So
No reflection, on Kathy, that's for sure.
That's,
That-
I just want to
that-
be very clear about that. It's not a reflection on Kathy. And if
That-
the clerk's saying that it has to be done for certain dates, then the clerk needs to hear what I'm saying too, which is as a voting member of the committee, I have a really hard time approving things that are too old. You know, so we need resources in here to deal with it.
And Barbara, for these 43D hearings regarding the hospital site, that has been another party. I don't know what her title is, but you know, she's been doing the minutes for those. So I don't know what her availability is, if she's able, you know, or available to take on additional. But so like the December and January are the ones that Colleen composed.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to still be within Kathy's control because she is, you know, our clerk and, you know, but Kathy, I just want you to know, like, I want to advocate for you to have the support you need to make this come together. This is crazy. And it's not, again, it's not a reflection on you because this has been happening at least 2 people before you. So it's not even
Like
us.
I said, I wasn't having a problem until I was out, so.
Yeah.
And now I'm
Okay.
just
You know,
catching up.
that
Can
said,
we give Kathy?
I'd like to move forward on this to keep moving along. So the first set of minutes that we're looking at is from Thursday, March 12th, 2020. The members present at that meeting was Brian Hoag, Peter Conroy, Mark Knox, and Barbara Mankowski. So only the members present should be voting on this. So did Peter and Barbara get a chance to review these minutes?
I read them in a motion to approve.
And I would second that motion. I remember this was a brief meeting, and it was not, it was actually a very short meeting. It was 25 minutes long. So I have a motion and a second by myself. I seconded, Peter made the motion. All in favor, Barbara? Barbara voted affirmatively, Peter,
Aye.
and myself vote. Motion carries with a majority to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2020. Thank you. The next set of minutes in our packet is November 19th, 2020. This was all members were present. Barbara joined about 5 minutes late. Did everybody get a chance to review these minutes?
Yes.
I did, actually. I reviewed these.
Yes.
I recall. I'm going to question the time of adjournment.
Yeah, I'd say probably add 2 hours to that.
I'm wondering if this was a continuation of the last ones. Kathy, could you speak to that? On the, you have the time of adjournment on the March 12th at 7:25, and I do remember that being a brief meeting. But on the November 19th minutes, there's a time of adjournment of 7:35. And there are 9 pages of filibuster on 2 different properties on 149 Bedford. So I have to assume that the meeting adjournment time was either a cut and paste from a previous set.
No,
Or-
that was right. That was the meeting that you had before the zoning board meeting. It started at 6:30. And they had just come in for that. I know that Bedford Street was pretty long. But I just went by the time in the video, which it was, what was it, an hour and 5 minutes? Yeah, now I can check it, but because I know from that meeting, I went to the zoning board meeting.
Mark, I agree. I actually logged in and watched the ZBA after that. It was about, mostly about the signs and the corner lot, so.
Okay, so if there's no other questions and concerns about that, I make a motion to approve November 19th, 2020 minutes of meeting for the planning board.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Barbara?
Aye.
Peter?
aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Myself. Motion carries unanimously to approve the November 19th minutes of meeting. The next set of minutes I have is the December 17th minutes for the 43D public hearing of the 43 Main Street joint meeting between the Planning Board and Conservation Commission. And I would just say the planning board is only voting to approve the planning board's version of these minutes. So that said, any amendments made by the Conservation Commission would not affect the approval of the planning board. So did everybody get a chance to review these?
Yep, I read them and motion to approve. Planning board only.
I second that. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Barbara? Peter?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
So we have, and myself. Aye. Motion carries unanimously to approve the December 17th, 2020 minutes of meeting. Next minutes that I have are January 21st, 2021. This is also 43D public hearing for 43 Main Street, joint meeting between the Planning Board and Conservation Commission. I assume everybody also got a chance to review these. Can I get a motion for any amendments or approval?
There are some spelling corrections needed for Brittany's name and Matt Keeley.
All right, does anybody else have any other amendments to make? Gessler, Gessler. Healy instead of Keeley.
Yep.
So I make a motion to approve the minutes for January 21st with the changes as noted. To change Brittany Gessler to Gesner and Matt Keeley to Matt Keeley.
Second,
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Barbara?
Aye.
Peter?
aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
And myself, vote aye. Motion carries to approve with the amendments as noted unanimously. So we're through the minutes. The next thing I have is invoice from Environmental Partners for the final inspection of Ledgewood Estates. So I think this just requires a vote, and I would make a motion that the chairman could solely sign this for approval so that not everybody needs to go and sign this invoice. We approved this work for Scott Turner from Environmental Partners to do a final peer review check of Paul Turner's Ledgewood Estates, which I believe, Kathy, could you confirm that the invoice was already paid by the applicant and it's just a matter of approval for that monies to be now filtered to Environmental Partners?
That amount, and it just has to be submitted to the accounting for payment,
Correct.
but we have the funds.
Yep.
So is that motion just for this invoice, or is that for other invoices going forward? Just a clarification on your policy right now.
just for this invoice. And
Okay.
I'd be happy to do it continually if we needed to make things streamlined, but I don't want to unilaterally take
Okay.
over that responsibility without the board's approval for everything.
Was-
So my motion is for the chairman to approve, or the chairman to be the only one to assign after the board votes to approve this invoice for payment.
Second. Oh, go ahead, Barbara.
I have a motion and a second, but discussion.
So,
Barbara.
Mark, was this invoice sent subsequent? It wasn't in our package. So was this an email that came out
Yeah,
afterward?
we got it today or something.
Yeah.
It came to me about a week ago, and I had asked Kathy to, probably not even a week. It was probably after the first draft agenda, Kathy.
Yeah, like I had just posted it, so
Yeah.
like
And
Tuesday.
so I had just said, try to get this on for approval in this meeting. And she sent it out this afternoon to the entire board.
I see it now. Okay, no, that's no problem. That's a straight pass through. So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I have a motion by myself and a second by Peter. All in favor? Barbara?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Myself? Aye. Motion carries unanimously to approve the payment, and the chairman will sign for approval only. Thank you. We have an update from 39 Cross Street for Mr. Morrissey. I believe he's present. Mr. Morrissey, could you give us an update on the standing water and proposed swale on the new subdivision near your home?
Yeah, Mike, I just want to quickly say something to the whole group. I think I got let in a little early, prematurely, and feel like I got a backstage look at the planning board. I don't envy any of you guys. You must love what you do. I think there are plenty of people in town that appreciate you. Just keep trying to do what you do. And Mark, as far as those feelings, just remember the Grinch. There's always hope.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. So you're right. They did dig the swale.
Good.
We haven't had a ton of rain. We did have rain Saturday, so they did Thursday. On Saturday, we had a fair amount of rain. It was still permeating through the silt fence. It did pool in my yard. The only concern I have is if this is their permanent fix, the water table's so high, even with no rain, in the last 10 days, there's still a significant amount of water in that swale now. If we have a bad winter rain, I don't know if that's going to hold up. I think it's still going to be a problem. So I don't know what their ultimate goal is for drainage, but it's hard to give you a firm update.
Yeah. Well, is there an improvement?
I mean, it's hard to say. It looks like there could be.
And and please understand, I'm not looking for you to say, yes, there's an improvement, and then we like smack the gavel and say, hey, we're done with you.
No,
I'm just looking for you to say, hey, yeah, it's not 6 inches deep, it's 2 inches deep, and it's a smaller area. And I'll follow up with the engineer to make sure that they continue to make improvements.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, in theory, it looks like it's going to work.
Okay.
But because we haven't really had much rain, the thing they're fighting in that area is, it's just, I've lived here 6 years. It's, there's always water there. It's got nowhere to go. High water table, I could probably take a shovel and dig down a foot and hit water.
Yeah.
I just concerned about, the long-term impact of it.
Yeah.
Initially I'll say, I'm glad that they did it. And I'm not sure it's an effective long-term thing, but I'm not an engineer. I mean, it's certainly not what I do, at least not that type. So all I can say is that, we had rain, the symptoms, persisted a bit, but it's cleared up. and it seems like it'll work. It's just, like I said, it's just collecting water, and that leads to, you know, a whole host of other
Yep.
issues with, you know, the mosquitoes that we all get to look forward to in another
Yep.
month and a half, you know.
Well, and the rainy season's coming. It's really not
Yep.
here yet, so it sounds promising. And again, I'm not looking to end this conversation with you as much as I'm glad to see improvements. I'll follow up with the engineer, and I'd like you to stay in communication with us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I've talked
Yeah, I called you that
previously.
day.
Yeah,
And
and anybody that, you know, if I've had to deal with something, it's been, you know, handled, and I appreciate that. You know, I'm just, like I said, that's my biggest concern, and um,
I
hopefully,
will say too, when I spoke to the engineer, he was very apologetic and a little bit embarrassed that it went the way that it did. And he led me to believe that he sort of chastised the contractor out there to make sure that they did make the changes that they made. And I know he's on top of it because it was a bad look for all of them. So please keep us updated. And, you know, we want it to work for everybody, and especially you.
well, I appreciate it. And Kathy, I can probably save you some time if you get a chance. Just update the spelling of my last name. There's 2 S's in it,
Okay.
please. All
Ms.
right.
Marcy, this is Barbara with Planning Board. I just want to chime in here. You know, when we initially reviewed these plans, and Planning Board members will recall, we spent a lot of time on the drainage on this property. Everybody was very, very concerned about making sure that the houses and the street and the community right around that area, because, you know, I drive that street all the time. I'm familiar with the flooding y'all get over there, especially that development, that large development. And I think the engineer was very, very aware of how important that was. So this should not be an ongoing problem. And we definitely want to hear from you. I know we want to make sure that your property doesn't sustain any
Negative impacts, any long-term negative impacts.
I mean, should we press the engineer and the contractor to take some additional measures to reduce the amount of water Morrissey is receiving?
But that work hasn't been done yet. It was pretty sophisticated, as I recollect. I can see the picture of the plan in my mind, but I don't have the engineering terms to reference. But we did spend a lot of time talking about how this would drain out and making sure it drained the right direction, and where was that water going to go once it drained. And so I do have confidence that this will be done right. But we want to make sure it's done right.
Well, I appreciate that. And I was in those meetings, and, you know, again, I'm not an engineer of that type. So in theory, everything sounds like it'll work. Hopefully it does.
We have rain coming next Wednesday. Next
So
Wednesday, we should look
Please,
again.
please keep us posted. And if there's any more issues,
Yeah.
we will definitely advocate on your behalf.
All right. I
Yeah, please
appreciate
do.
it.
Thanks for coming
us
in tonight,
posted.
Mr. Morrissey.
All right. Thanks. You
Thank
guys
you.
have a good night.
You also.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Zooks.
Did we conclude all other business? It looks like I got everything that was on the agenda. And if so, does anybody else want to make any brief announcements or discussion?
I took the class on the housing choice, and I'm going to suggest that we not discuss it tonight.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Duly noted. Anybody else? That said, I'll entertain, Michelle.
We actually had an informal discussion this past week. A few different ladies in town got together to discuss the potential for forming this CPA committee that I think we talked about it briefly the other day. And so right now, I think we're just still trying to gain some momentum and some interest. And at that point, would need to appoint a planning board member, and for the Board of Selectmen to also appoint to this committee. So I know it's been tried. It's It's gone
Michelle.
to town meeting a couple times, but
Will you clarify, Michelle, what the CPA is for the rest of the board?
the Community Preservation Act Committee. So although it has been brought to town meeting and it was defeated in town meeting a couple times over the past, I think it was like 10 to 15 years. Now we're seeing quite a few people concerned with preserving open spaces and protecting, you know, our historic features as well, because it does have a certain historic aspect to it, an open space aspect to it, and also an affordable housing or affordable / elderly housing aspect as well. So so we're trying to, like I said, gain some interest. I think we had 5 women who were interested so far, and it needs to be a 9-member committee. So once we have the interest, I did speak with Leah Fabian, and she said that, you know, just let her know and the Board of Selectmen can appoint that committee, because she had brought it up at the Board of Selectmen meeting as well.
Has anybody from Open Space been approached on that?
Yes, Mike Schroeder was one of the women who was part of
Good.
that discussion.
I would like to make a suggestion to the Community Preservation Action Committee or Act Committee. A brilliant man made a suggestion to me at one point to take some of the new growth that we have in town and make a bylaw that maybe takes 10% of the taxes generated and put the 10 or 15% of the taxes generated, property taxes, from new business growth towards a fund that would be able to purchase open space to not make, you know, for example, the Open Space Committee, sort of a neutered, powerless committee that they could then vote to recommend a property be purchased. And the funds would be controlled by, say, the Board of Selectmen upon the recommendation of the, say, the Planning Board, CPA, and Open Space. If those members were willing to draft a bylaw, I think that would garner a lot of support from everybody. I mean, how could you argue with that one?
Yeah, and I wonder if I was thinking that I didn't have all the background information, and I did learn a lot from the discussion that we had this past week. And I thought that, you know, we could do something along those lines as opposed to having a yearly a yearly property tax, that it could be on the sale of properties. So I wonder if we could do, because there's a tier, you don't have to go with the maximum, you could go with the minimum, and then maybe we could do a bylaw, something along this line as well. And I think the committee, along with open space, would be a great, you know, way to get that going. If there were, you know, 2 different committees working towards the same goal, I think it'd be even better.
As long as they got along.
I'm sure they would.
Long time coming. So,
Peter, you'd like to add to that? You look like you might want to.
I was going to ask Michelle. So you actually you create this group now before you bring it to town meeting, and then that group can actually sort of market it to the town. Is that right? And do all that very important background, getting rid of the misinformation about it and just spreading the, you know, the truth about it. Right? Is that accurate?
Yes. So although the CPA didn't pass at town meeting as you know, to be created, the CPA committee, or I guess it's a CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, was created. We do have it as a general bylaw, which Chairman LaCamera had said, you know, like, we already have this. We can create the committee. So if we can create the committee and get, you know, do the work and hopefully bring it to town meeting. And one of the ideas is to not have it as a vote on town meeting, but to do it as a vote to have it on the ballot instead, because that, I guess, is how Middleborough was successful with creating the CPA that way.
I was at the town meeting where at the last one where it was voted down, and the lady who did the presentation, it was excellent. I mean, but the hard-nosed question gets asked right away: how much is this going to cost me? And that's when that's where the rubber meets the road right there to most people. So
Mhm.
it was a percentage of your taxes. I forget.
I think it was 3. I did go back and watch that public meeting. And I
It
believe it
brought
was
your
down to
taxes up by
3%.
3%. Is that right?
And I believe it also like subtracts the first 100,000 and it's only off of that, whatever remains, that's 3% tax. But it doesn't have to be 3. It could be smaller too. It could be less. We could go for something less and then we could hopefully generate it some other way.
We should be asking the developers. In other states, the developers pay for everything. They pay for intersections and parking lots and I mean, not parking lots, school, playgrounds. So, we have development that's going on right now. If part of that requirement was a donation to our CPA, I don't know that this has to be a taxpayer cost. But I also think right now is the time to get this on board. I think people are really concerned.
You know what that said, Barbara?
Yeah.
Peter, you might be able to clarify this, but I'm under the impression that LeBaron had something like that put in there, that either $500 or $1,000 from every home sale went towards something. And so the developer didn't have to pay it till he sold the home. He just had to build it into the cost.
That I don't know of. If it did, it didn't go through us. That could have gone from selectmen to them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It didn't come from us, if I recall.
I'll look into that too, because that'd be good to know just for future development too, for planning board's capabilities to request that from the developer.
Michelle, how many years do they say typically does this have to run until you have enough money where you can actually do something? Like I was under the impression it was about 3 years you had to let this run before you had a pool that you could actually do something with.
Well, so the state has matching funds. So I think it depends greatly on how much of that matching funds is available or whether, the town can get that as well. But it does say that it can come from all different means. So like Barbara and Mark just said, there could be different methods as to not just having it as a tax, but to generate other funding towards.
Absolutely. You could have endowments, all kinds of stuff.
So, but I'm sorry, Peter, to answer your question, I'm not sure what that time frame is.
I guess it would you'd have to estimate what we would bring in per year. And, in my mind, I would think, an amount, but I wouldn't guess as to how much you would actually need in there before you could start doing things. So.
What's your number?
$1.5 million.
All right, I like it.
You really can't go to the table to half of these people. You have to pay. You're going to pay fair market value for anything that comes out of farm, tax or anything. So, you have to kind of come guns loaded to the negotiating table. You're not going to get a deal. That's what people should know, that you're going to pay exactly what it's going to cost. So you can't ask somebody to take less. They might volunteer a little less because it's for the town, but it's going to be pretty close to market value, anything that you buy.
Yep. Would anyone else like to add to that? With that said, I think that concludes tonight's meeting. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion. I'll second that motion. All in favor? Barbara? Peter?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Meeting is adjourned.